are you doing today?
Well, beware the Ides of March, Amy. Beware the Ides of March.
We have a really wicked storm going on here, so I did want to warn you. If at some point I lose power and electricity on all that, I'm out here with the Blair Witch Project, flashlight and stuff, trying to survive. So, yeah, it is. We've had major windstorms here in Indiana, stuff that doesn't get reported across the USA. We actually had tornadoes so bad that two people all died this past week.
Oh my goodness, that's
Yeah,
terrible.
and it goes into though the the warning systems weren't paid for in the tornado warning
Oh,
systems, which is kind of what we expect right now from this administration. So good thing that 200 million was spent on horse videos or whatever instead. So Nick, today we are going to focus on international events, and so we talked beforehand. We do not want this to be the Iran show, but we do need to talk about Iran because Iran is causing a lot, including when I went to fill up the tank, and many Americans filling up the tank over the past week. So let's talk and start with Iran, and then we're going to move out into the broader impacts and what's going on in the world.
yeah. So in Iran over the past week, this is the second full week of fighting. We're going into third. The military is amazingly well performing and achieving military objectives amazingly well, doing everything that it's being asked to do. What we're seeing an absence of is defined political objectives. And this is the same problem we ran into in Vietnam and Iraq. The military does an amazing job, but without that political and strategic goal that you're trying to achieve, it's like it doesn't. It's you're expending munitions for the sake of spending munitions, and that does not accomplish anything other than wasting a lot of money and killing people.
Yeah, $1 billion a day. So I touched on oil prices here in the United States and gas. Let's talk a little bit about how this is impacting both China and Russia, because there's some significant activities going on there.
Yeah, absolutely. So Russia, or I'm sorry, start with China real quick. Over this past week, the International Energy Agency released about a third of its oil reserves, or it said it was going to. So it's not like a flood all at once, but over the coming few weeks, the about 400 million gallons from the reserves from several countries around the world are going to be released into the market. 175 of that comes from the United States. What you're not seeing is China releasing reserves. They're actually still stockpiling theirs. They've used the pariah status of Russia and Iran to get a lot of cheap oil and to build up their stockpiles, and they're still doing that. So while I'm sure that gas has probably gone up in China, I don't know that for certain, but I do know that they're continuing to stockpile rather than release to try to bring prices down. And then pivoting up to Russia. We authorized the sale of some, and I don't want to oversell this, but it's a big deal, but it's not the biggest deal. So we authorized the sale of Russian oil that was already at sea. So that is going to be foreign exchange that goes into Putin's pocket, and that will help fuel his war machine in Ukraine. It's not an insignificant amount. I think I read somewhere that's about 150 million barrels. Which is not an insignificant amount, but it's not like they're going to just turn on the taps in Russia to be able to sell that globally.
Our partners are not really happy there, and particularly Ukraine. And let's talk about this very strange and interesting situation now with Ukraine and the drones.
Yeah, so Ukraine, obviously, over the last 4 years now, has gotten very, very good at defeating drones because the Iranians sold this exact design to the Russians, and the Russians have been hitting them with it. So they found a relatively inexpensive way to counter it, vice using multi-million-dollar missile interceptors to counter a $60,000 drone. So a lot of Gulf states have already said, "Hey, sign us up. Send your experts. We'll buy your equipment. We need this we need this now." Ukraine has offered it to the United States too. The Trump administration has been not as enthusiastic about taking Ukraine up on its offer, and I'm disappointed by that, disheartened by that. It's unfortunate because there's a lot of expertise and a lot of skill that we can gain there to our benefit and to the benefit of our allies and partners that we're choosing not to take full advantage of.
Yeah, so lots of concerns there. Let's dig further and over into Europe now, and let's talk about ally supporter, or really it's kind of the opposite. What we're seeing is a lot of countries, European countries, saying, "Don't use our bases. We're not coming to support." Let's talk about that a little bit. I know during the Olympics we talked about this environment there, that soft power and goodwill, and we did not build this up like we have in previous times.
That is absolutely right. So I mentioned before the show to you that during the first Gulf War back in the 90s, H.W. Bush spent a lot of time building up a coalition to defeat Iraq and liberate Kuwait. Fast forward about a decade, and his son, G.W. Bush, spent a lot of time building up a coalition to reinvade Kuwait in 2003. Or I'm not sorry, not Kuwait, but Iraq. That is something that the Trump administration elected not to do. And their incredibly confrontational diplomatic style has alienated a lot of our traditional friends and allies. So when it came time to kick off this operation against Iran, a lot of our friends and allies were like, "Hey, leave us out of this. This is your show. We don't want to play." Britain did turn around pretty quickly. It wasn't on day one, but shortly after day one, they opened up a use of their air bases. And because of the emerging energy crisis and the kind of flailing response that Iran has had, the French in particular have moved a lot of naval assets into the Mediterranean. The Trump administration is now suggesting that the Europeans should take care of the Strait of Hormuz issue. It's an issue that we created, but he wants them to solve it for us. But they're facing the same situation that we are. So as much as we would all like that strait to be open, and that would really, if I may do a quick aside, if we can get that strait open and we can get the oil flowing again, it really takes leverage away from the Iranians and would help hasten the end of this conflict. So I hope we can find a way to do it, but it's not easy to do. Otherwise, we would be doing it already. And to expect our partners and allies just step in and do it on a dime is just, it's unrealistic. If we can't, why would we expect them to be able to?
Right. And along with that, there's also been a public statement by the Iranian government that any ships can go through there except for U.S. and Israeli ships at this point. So,
well, it's a little more nuanced than that. It's U.S., Israeli, and our allies, and that ally statement is pretty ambiguous. It's ambiguous enough that the insurer companies, and this is what's really stopping the ships from moving, they don't have insurance to run because it's a lot of money to operate a ship, and that's a lot of money in the cargo. So without that, they are just not willing to take the risk. And so if Iran chooses to identify Saudi Arabia as an ally, then their ships are at risk. If it chooses to recognize Morocco as an ally, then their ships are at risk. So while they made that statement, there's enough ambiguity there that they can come off a little more generous than they really are.
Right, exactly. And that's what I was going to say. They've definitely created a political quagmire with that, and creating that sort of vague language and vague point for allies to specifically go down there at this point, because who does that mean, right? And so there's been no direct threat to NATO. There has been some missiles coming very close to Turkey, which has been a concern of the NATO allies. And there still are some nations, Spain in particular, who are very reticent to get involved.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I read recently that we're going to start basing some aircraft out of Romania. So that's one eastern flank European ally that's more on board. But the further you get geographically from the conflict, the more, like you said, reticent the nations are to get involved.
Yeah. So we've covered a lot there. I want to move over into Cuba and Mexico. So we're going to pivot our map once again. Thank you to Google Maps. What a great tool. And then for anybody out there, please please subscribe, and please let us know your interest. What we do is just try to follow the globe every week and talking about current events. It is obviously from a U.S.-centric perspective. We know a lot of other things are going on in the world now. But let's talk a little bit about Cuba and Mexico, and particularly this desire for regime change from the administration and starving them both out of oil, but now at this point, like literally starving people in Cuba.
Yeah, so the oil crisis in Cuba is absolutely at a critical level. They've been literally out of all but emergency oil for a long time, and that's starting to affect things like hospitals, emergency services. So yeah, it is a critical life-saving thing. There is a report out this past week from the Cubans that they are in direct talks with the Trump administration. It's still preliminary, so I don't know what direction they're going to go. I don't know specifically, other than the vagueness of we want regime change, what the Trump administration envisions that to be, and exactly how far the Cubans would be willing to go with that. From my perspective, the fact that we're talking is positive. As long as diplomacy proceeds, that's a good thing in my mind. And the Cuban governance has needed to be addressed for a very long time now. So if something positive can come out of this for the Cubans, that's great. But the humanitarian crisis that you alluded to, that we have, while the Cuban government is not innocent in this matter, we have exacerbated it to a great degree. And I think you mentioned earlier that the President Scheinbaum Dr. President Scheinbaum, I'm sorry, in Mexico has said that, hey, look, there's a humanitarian crisis going on here. And I know the United States doesn't want oil there, but we are going to respond to the humanitarian crisis. And that means sending oil. We're going to send oil.
Yeah, and particularly oil and food and medical supplies. And, I think recognizing, what we talked about and we'll probably do in another session is the United States used to be very much a flagship country in humanitarian aid and assisting other countries, and very quickly now under this administration that's went away, and so we are now on the very opposite side of this, and there is a lot of questions right now, and I know we did not prepare this for the topics, but maybe something we'll want to talk in a future session is what does this mean when it comes to international law, and what are the potential for war crime tribunals and the United States maybe for the first time ever facing those.
Yeah, I'm not prepared to go that far, but it's definitely the degree to which we have pivoted from being the world's principal supplier of humanitarian aid and that shining city on the hill that Reagan spoke about, to now saying if we're not getting something out of it, we're not really interested in doing it. And that's the administration's stated position, is it has to be transactional. It has to be American first. So it's, from my interpretation of the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States, it's turning our back on our principles that we believe all humans are entitled to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and turning us into just another country where we have territorial and economic interests that are just what we care about, and not necessarily what our founding documents say we should care about.
Right. And I think a lot of concern too in the rhetoric that we hear now when you look at the Secretary of Defense, who that is still his legal positional title, stating that we will give no quarter, which literally is against international rights and the international rules of law, and then saying that they are not going to follow rules of engagement. There are a lot of concerns, and then especially when you are looking at the details now coming out of that Iranian school for girls that was bombed.
Yeah, and that's it's tragic. That is an incredibly tragic situation. The Secretary's statement is deeply concerning. Because you're absolutely right. If somebody's surrendering, then by the Geneva Convention, by the rules of war, by everything, international law, everything that I've ever been taught and trained, you have to give quarter. That's a requirement. And the Secretary coming out and saying that is dangerous. And this is exactly why the congresspeople and senators, a few months ago now, came out and said, hey, if you get illegal orders, you do not follow them, because you're obligated to not follow them. It reinforces the fact that they needed to send that message. And the Secretary of Defense needs to take that message to heart too.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've talked a lot of areas in a very short amount of time. And Nick, most importantly, what are you drinking today? Because that was
in honor of the pending St. Patrick's Day, I am drinking a Nutty Irishman.
Ooh, and so what is in a Nutty Irishman?
It's Bailey's and Frangelico, so it's not a terribly complicated cocktail. Very creamy with the hint of hazelnut.
Oh, I love that. And I think you're aware I'm practicing Lent right now. So
I know.
My drink is consisting of a club soda with a lime in it. So it's sort of like a virgin Cuba Libre here going on. But I'm very, very much looking forward to Lent being over and going back to some indulgences again. Okay.
And
Thank
apparently
you.
your dog is as well.
And my dog is as well.